Hey, Daily Dosers, this is Pastor Larry here with the last of our look at Daniel and what it means to thrive in Babylon. And I don't know about you, I've had a great time just remembering some of the key things that allowed Daniel in the most godless of cultures, the all-time godless culture actually, to be able not just to survive but to thrive. And today I want to take a look at the last of the traits we've looked at. So far, we've seen that a real key was his understanding of God's sovereignty. He had a proper view of God, and that allowed him to have the confidence that things were going to end up right no matter what the score was in the third quarter. And in the midst of that, he was able to have the wisdom to pick his battles and understand the difference between what made him uncomfortable and he didn't like, as opposed to what God commanded or what God forbade. Now, yesterday, we took a look at what I called part one of humility, his attitude of serving a wicked, godless king so well, he kept getting promoted. And how important it is that we follow the model of Daniel and even the model of Jesus, who washed the feet, not just of the apostles, but catch this, who was in that group? Yep, Judas. The guy was going to betray him in a few moments. And then Jesus says, you go out and do this same thing, not a ceremony, but this same thing of taking on a servant's role for others. Whether they're going to love you or betray you, you do this. That's our game plan. Well, another part of humility that I want to take a few moments to look at today as we tie this all up is how it's a key to winning people over, not just because we serve them as opposed to oppose them, but also the very fact that people feel that we like them. I touched on that a little at the end of yesterday's, but it's so important. As we look at Daniel, and as he continues to serve the king well, he rises higher and higher and higher. And then finally in Daniel chapter 4, there's this weird dream that the king has. And nobody can interpret it, so he calls Daniel and says, Daniel, I know you can interpret this dream for me. And it's a dream that basically, by allegory and metaphor, tells Nebuchadnezzar that there's going to come a time where you're going to go mentally ill. You're going to live like a wild animal for about a year of your life because you're so filled with pride at the kingdom you've built. And God says that there's going to come this point where I'm going to show you who the real power is here. And so he relays the dream to Daniel, and Daniel knows the meaning of the dream, and he's like, oh boy, how's this going to go? But catch what Daniel says, because the king calls Belshazzar, and he says, Belshazzar, remember that was the Babylonian name of Daniel that meant Baal, or demon Baal's prince, that he just in his wisdom said, call me whatever you want. The king says, Belshazzar, do not let the dream or its meaning alarm you. And here's Belshazzar's, or Daniel's, answer. My lord, if only the dream applied to your enemies and its meaning to your adversaries. In other words, I wish it was anybody but you. Catch that. I want to tell you in my flesh, if I'm Daniel, remember, this is a guy who's kidnapped me, castrated me, put me into his administration, changed my name to dishonor my God, attacked my city, attacked the temple of my God, and took devoted things to his demon god's temple. After all that, and this dream comes and he says, hey, don't be alarmed, tell me what it means. I think I'd say something like this. Hey, Neb, baby, I've been praying for this for a long time, and I've got good news for me and not so good news for you. The fourth quarter has finally come. It's not Daniel's heart. Daniel's heart is, O king, if it was anybody but you, I wish it was for others. Wow, what kind of impact would we have upon our world and our community if towards the most godless of people we had a Daniel-like or a Jesus-like attitude? If we were willing to wash the feet of a Judas, if we were willing to care so deeply for one that when a Nebuchadnezzar is going to get his, we wish it wasn't happening. Instead of us sitting back and just going, God, get him, God, get him. Because Jesus didn't come to get him. He came to save him. And as his ambassadors, as his representatives, that's what he wants us to do. And when we do that, we'll have, as I keep saying over and over this week, we'll have the right to be heard. And when we have the right to be heard, and the gospel, the good news of Jesus is clearly proclaimed, people who were once his enemies become his sons and daughters, just like many of us. Let's not just survive in these spiritually dark times. Let's thrive to the glory of our Lord.